It was raining hard in Frisco. I needed one more fare to make my night. A lady up ahead waved to flag me down. She got in at the light. Oh, where you going to, my lady blue? It's a shame you ruined your gown in the rain. She just looked out the window. She said, 16 Parkside Lane.
Women, they ain't gonna like this, but they're worse than men. A man, I mean, you can handle, you can talk to him in his own kind of language. You can't do this to a woman. I recall an incident one time. I picked up this intoxicated woman, and I took her out of the city limits, and she gave me her address. She was coherent enough. She gave me the address and told me where she lived, and I told her, I said, all right, now you lean back and go to sleep, and whenever I get to your destination, I'll wake you up. So I got her to her house. Couldn't wake her up. So I got out of the cab, opened the back door, got halfway in the cab and started tapping her in the face a little bit, and she woke up. Well, the first thing she saw was my ugly mug looking at her. I mean, what's she going to do? She done the thing any woman would. She'd scream. Oh, man, I thought every cop in the world was after me then. Geez, windows went up, everything. I thought I was in trouble. And I had a hell of a time explaining to the police what had happened. And then finally she came to her senses, and she says, no, everything's all right. But women could be a pain in the neck. Like I said, a man you can talk to. A woman, hey, forget it.
Dr. Joseph Newman is chairman of the Department of Special Education and Rehabilitation at the University of Pittsburgh and director of the Western Pennsylvania Institute on Alcohol Studies.
Instead of emphasizing to the public the seriousness of this problem, it just continues to make it a joke, and hence people not going to pay. Well, drunk, what the hell. The only drunks are the ones out on the streets. But they don't tell you about the one who, the women, particularly women drinkers, you see, who snitch drinks, have bottles stashed away, and so on. This is, again, a very, very serious problem. And also, you might be interested to know that roughly half of all traffic accidents have alcohol involved.
You are listening to One for the Road, a report on alcoholism, on KQV, Pittsburgh. Alcohol has become so important to us, we've even developed a new language to accommodate it. There are dozens of intriguing names for drinks. Some of them appeal to women, others to men. Those that appeal primarily to women have very feminine names: Pink Ladies, Orange Blossoms, and Brandy Alexanders. Those that appeal to the masculine gender have a He-Man ring to them. There's the Stinger, the Rusty Nail, only a man would take on a rusty nail, the Screwdriver, for all the builders, no doubt, and the Moscow Mule for vodka lovers, and the very popular Rob Roy. And for those who refuse to be categorized, there's the latest entry in the sauce derby that appeals to all sexes of all ages, the mysterious Harvey Wallbanger. It's easy to lose track of how many of these exciting drinks one has had by having them topped up, spiked, or freshened up. And attempts to prolong drinking periods have been more than successful by merely putting another one under the belt, having one more for the road. And at the end of all the formal partying, it's not at all unusual to have a nightcap in the privacy of one's home. Then there's the inevitable hair of the dog that bit you the morning after, which incidentally succeeds in getting you started on another day of civilized saturation. Of course, the mass psychology runs much deeper than just fooling ourselves about what and how much we drink and why the sauce is so inviting. We invariably refuse to admit to ourselves or others that we were drunk the night before or the morning after. We weren't drunk. We were just bombed, tight, clobbered, smashed, lit, soused, plastered, or high as a kite, but never drunk. The actual truth of the matter is that no matter how we delude ourselves, no matter how we camouflage the truth in silly language, we will never be able to bury the threatening aspects of alcohol, and a drink is a highly potent thing.
They'll come in and say, well, I'm drinking I know I'm drinking too much. It's because of this or it's because of that. And the only thing that you can say as a bartender, that it's not going to help you. No matter how much you drink, it's not going to help you. It might put off your troubles for a while, but tomorrow you're going to wake up and they're still going to be there. But they won't really come out and say, I have a problem with drinking. They're going to blame it on something else. And they look for it as an escape.
Sing a song of sad young men, glasses full of rye. All the news is bad again. Kiss your dreams goodbye. All the sad young men sitting in the bar, drinking up the night and missing all the stars. All the sad young men drifting through the town, drinking up the night, trying not to drown. All the sad young men singing in the cold, trying to forget that they are growing old. All the sad young men choking on their youth, trying to be brave, running from the truth.
I think what we have to focus on is the American conflictual and ambivalent attitude toward alcohol use as a society. As we become increasingly aware that our society depends on drugs to solve all kinds of human relationships, I think that brings us into focus as to how alcohol, readily available and available really at all age levels, gets misused. The real issue is, can we define for the nation the limits of responsible alcohol use and non-use, so that when our society or individuals in that society go beyond that established norm, we can recognize quickly and early that they are having problems with alcohol and get them into a treatment setting before they destroy themselves or society.
Dr. Morris Chafetz, Director of the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism.
We would get together perhaps for a beer after the kids were home from school and dress down for play. Supper was under control.
This is Jane.
Really
she is a recovering alcoholic.
As time went along, we did partying with the folks in the community. These were great parties. These are great people. They all drank a lot. But the drinking, as far as I was concerned, as far as we were concerned, my husband and I, it was a whole different scene. We never drank this way. The daytime drinking started with a perfectly innocent little beer in the afternoon with the gal next door or the gal down the street. Not every day, of course. The weekend partying, it was the couples together, and there was bridge, and there were dinner parties, and there was, charade games and singing and the dances at the community dances at different places. It was really a very, very fun, nice atmosphere. Nothing really here shocking, to tell you the truth. Through these years, as I tell the story, I don't want you to think that this was just an alcohol-soddened group of people. This is not true. We all were achievers. We were involved in many things. This was not all black and bad. I was involved in fund drives. I was involved in PTA. First time my husband ever saw me drunk when I shouldn't have been. And this is important because, the times that I was loaded or tight or drunk or whatever you want to call it was okay, because that was part of this partying atmosphere, which I don't condemn. It's okay. They were fun times, and I don't want to come on condemning these things. At any rate, I was PTA president, and my husband still had evening hours at this point, and he came to our son was in 6th grade at this point, and he said he walked into the meeting and he thought, good grief, Jane's loaded. Here I was, president of a PTA, and I was drinking. I was functioning, but I was drinking. And this was the story of how this thing went along pretty much.
Dr. Joseph Newman.
Most of the time people focus on exactly what you point out, the Skid Row drunk. Now that's a very small part of the problem. They represent 2 or 3% of the alcohol problems. I'm talking about the people who, like you and I, who try to work every day, who need a shot to keep them going, who have Monday morning illnesses, for whom many concerns have invested much money. They want. It's cheaper for them to keep them on a job than dismiss them, and because of their own guilt about their own drinking, hide this. They carry them along until the point where the deteriorative process, the problem is growing so that you simply can't ignore it, and then they get fired. So this is not something that takes place overnight, but over a period of years. So everybody shares, in this sense, in the whole problem.
I know that the first morning drink I had was, again, an innocuous story. But this says something. It was after church. We'd been to church and went to a neighbor's. They were doing yard work, and we dressed down and went over there, and they were having a beer, and they said, would you like a beer? And this was like at 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And I still had some reserve about this, you see, because this wouldn't stick in my mind, that before noon wasn't the time to drink. Wasn't the time to drink. And yet, I had that beer. Gotta tell you now that I never drank a drink I didn't like. Never. I was not a falling down, throwing up drunk. I loved the taste of it, I loved the feel of it, and was pretty much on my feet up until those last couple of years. But at any rate, they said have a beer, and I remember the reservations that I had. And I remember at the time I was reading a book by Ilka Chase, Past Imperfect, in which she described crying into a lonely Sunday morning beer. And you see, this is the deceit of the thing. The beautiful people. We alcoholics, have to live with all this slick advertising, and the media deceives us. All the beautiful people do this. Well, it can get to be very sick. I'm not saying people shouldn't drink. It's fine. I have no argument at all with alcohol. It's just it's just the people who can't handle it where the tragedy lies. So at any rate, this was my first morning drink. The first drink of hard liquor occurred pretty much in the same way. It was in our kitchen, and there had been out-of-town guests, and the man came over. I can see him in my kitchen now in a red check jacket, and the brandy was on the sink board, and he said, do you mind if I have a bit of brandy in my coffee, Jane? And I said, why, Jim, of course not. And would you like some, Jane? Why, of course. Of course I would. So this was my first morning drink of hard liquor. Needless to say, on neither of these occasions did I immediately every morning run for a beer, nor did I start drinking hard liquor. But you see, there was an erosion. There was a gradual erosion of my attitudes toward alcohol, and I don't know where I crossed the line, that invisible line, into alcoholism. It's like trying to find the line between the Atlantic and the Arctic Ocean if you were swimming. Where is the line? I can't put my finger on it. But I do know that now in my wisdom, I know I was the victim of an addiction to alcohol. So I don't know where all these things, where they occurred.
Dr. Charles Gabos.
Drinking steadily over a period of years, such as 10 to 15 years, will establish a dependence in the body so that there is a requirement for a certain amount of chemical, which is alcohol, to perform normal activities. Alcohol is used positively by the body in those people who depend upon alcohol. Over a period of years, the human body, there is a tissue tolerance or adjustment where the human body needs alcohol to perform well. And if it's withdrawn, then the performance of the human body is becomes less active, and the performance is decreased.
It came to the point where I was hiding my supply, where I had decided that my husband just didn't understand what all these fun people were doing, and that I knew that he wouldn't approve of a high intake. We partied together, and he's good fun, and he enjoyed this, but I knew that he wouldn't approve of this. Maybe basically I knew I was in trouble. So this is the way the thing went along. Getting rid of the bottles was a terrible problem, and just lots of humiliating, small humiliating things. The domestic scene certainly crumbles. The domestic scene crumbles when you're in the middle of this, because everything that you've built on breaks down into pieces. The drinking alcoholic destroys, the communication goes, because why is this drinking person doing this? And the drinking person doesn't know, as I didn't. I really didn't know. I knew I drank too much, and it just gets pretty bad. Thank God our marriage survived. Many marriages don't survive this picture at all. Don't survive this scene. But at any rate, ours did. The thing went on, and I really did not drink in bars. I wasn't arrested. I wasn't being hospitalized. I wasn't wrecking cars. I knew I was in trouble. I would sing a little song to myself, "You're an alcoholic, and you know it, respectability if you don't show it." I knew that this thing was happening to me.
Again, Dr. Newman.
Just think of 9 million alcoholics, people with real problems. If you multiply that by a family, number of families, you're dealing with roughly 36 million people. And when a person drinks, he just is not able to meet the responsibilities of a job, of family, and its effects in terms of the disruption of families is devastating. Just because, you see, it's not just like having the kind of disease where the doctor comes in, gives you a couple of shots, or gives you a pill, or does a little surgery, and it's all over with. This thing extends over years and years of a constantly lowered efficiency, and the effects on, and emotionally and in terms of relationships in the family are quite devastating.
It was in 1964. I was working on a benefit. I was to model in the fashion show on a Saturday. I had made centerpieces. I don't remember too much about that week. I had dropped by to a funeral director and gotten all those free goodies, the tallies and the pencils and all those things that you get free for the party. Called my husband on Friday morning and said, "Well, I'm all set. I'll see you tonight." I was a day early. For this party. And while I was on the telephone, I collapsed completely. The roof fell in. My husband knew what he was listening to. He was listening to his wife on this end of the telephone in convulsions. And he came rushing home. The gal across the street came over. They called the doctor. I remember none of this. It's just been, it's only secondhand as it's been told to me, because I don't remember this. But at any rate, that was Friday, and Tuesday my husband called our doctor. This doctor had seen me through. I've had a lot of serious physical things, but I have a strong body. Thank God that I guess that helped me survive all this. But at any rate, he called the doctor Tuesday, and I had not I had not slept a wink. I had been in completely hallucinating, talking to people who weren't there, answering phones that weren't ringing, and just the whole alcoholic hallucination bit is what I was doing. And my husband called our doctor, and they stuck me in a small general hospital in the psychiatric ward. You know, a drunk really doesn't belong there, but a family doesn't, and some doctors don't know quite what to do with the drunk. And I was in this psychiatric ward for a month. I was strapped down in full restraints. I don't know how long. I really don't know how long. I know I was in the hospital for a month, and came out of that hospital experience no more the wiser. From here on, really I came home and didn't do any drinking until spring of that year, at which time I went to the state store and I bought a pint of vodka. I don't know why I bought that. I know now why I bought it. I'm an alcoholic. I was an alcoholic then, and I had no tools nor no skills to keep me out of that state store. And I bought the pint of Smirnoff, brought it home, drew a skull and crossbones on it with a little drama with Jane, you'll die, because a surgeon who was a friend of ours had said this to me when I was in when I was in the hospital. Didn't open that until the next day, at which time I did, and I was off and running again, trying to control this. But it's, again, like a consumptive trying to control their coughing. There ain't no way.
Dr. Joseph Jackline.
When we start to find biochemical aberrations in our routine screening mechanisms that we incorporate, or when we start to find physiologic manifestations or organ manifestations, then we're pretty far along the scale already of a problem related to rather long-term, and I use that word sparingly, rather long-term ingestion of alcohol. Again, I have to clarify this, because when I say long-term, this is a variable from person to person, obviously, and we really can't quantitate per se the effects of alcohol on an individual, because this is an individual variance. You must always talk in terms of what effect does this amount of ethanol under these circumstances have on this individual? And this is what I'm referring to. But when we get into the aberrations in biochemical screens and or aberrations in the routine physical examination, physiologically speaking, neurologically speaking, we're pretty well along the scale already of manifestations of chronic alcohol deterioration.
This went along until October that year, at which time I called the doctor, frightened about my drinking, frightened about it. And what can I do? We were on a first-name basis, and he said to me, use your willpower. Well, we in the program know that this is an impossibility. As time goes along and the willpower isn't working, I asked about the pills I had been taking when I came out of the hospital. He said those were just a few tranquilizers and sleeping tablets and this nerve pills. Well, this is so dangerous for the alcoholic. I know that now. So I didn't get into a double addiction, but I was lucky. I was just lucky because the pills are bad. So at any rate, I struggled along until in November, and it was the week before Thanksgiving. Our kids were coming home, and I knew there was no way that I couldn't hack it. I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't live this way, and I knew that I had to, well, really, it was a death wish.
Dr. Abraham Twerski, Clinical Director of Psychiatry at St. Francis Hospital and head of the Gateway Rehabilitation Center.
Some people find that it's almost a rarity to see someone who is purely on alcohol. The cross-addiction between alcohol and the barbiturates, or some of the newer tranquilizers, or speed, which is very often found in similar analogous forms in the so-called diet pills, that this cross-addiction is the rule rather than the exception. People will switch from alcohol to diet pills to so-called downers, and back and forth, and sometimes in a very lethal fashion, mixing the two.
Blue Shield offers you the finest protection against Dr. Bill expense, and there is a program available to meet your family needs. The popular Blue Shield Medical Surgical Program offers a broad range of benefits covering both medical and surgical service. These benefits are provided on a fixed fee schedule, a schedule which provides coverage in full for covered services if your income falls within certain specified limits, and the services are provided by a Blue Shield participating doctor. For even more comprehensive doctor bill protection, Blue Shield offers the new Blue Shield 100 program. Under this program, Blue Shield pays the participating physician on a prevailing fee basis. This means coverage in full for covered services, regardless of your income when the services are provided by a Blue Shield participating physician. For more information, write to Blue Shield, KQV, Pittsburgh, 15219. Blue Shield. Let's take a healthy attitude toward life. You are listening to One for the Road, a report on alcoholism. Jane has been telling her story. She remains an alcoholic today. Jane has not been cured. Her recovery is a day-by-day battle.
I have never bothered or worried or fretted too much about why I am an alcoholic. Some people I know keep probing and wondering, and that's fine. I mean, that's all right if they want to do this. I do not, and from the beginning, and I've been in the program for 6.5 years. It'll be 7 years in December. And I tried to put away from me this business of why I drank. I refuse to waste time and energy, if you will, looking for a cross-eyed teddy bear in my past. I have seen people do this, and they can drink themselves to death while they're trying to find out why they drank. So to me, it is not important. I have an inquisitive mind. I like to know the why and wherefore of things. But with alcoholism, it is such a monster, and I can't play around with this. I know that I am alcoholic, and that alcohol and I spell catastrophe. And so this is enough for me. It's a pretty simple philosophy. Another thing that is very important to me is that I have never laid blame for my alcoholism. I've been fortunate in being able to assimilate these kinds of attitudes because as my story goes along, I blame no one, friends or, I think that this would have happened to me no matter where I had been. I'm convinced of this, and this is good enough for me. And also, in not laying blame, I include myself. I think this is a tricky thing, perhaps, for the alcoholic first coming to this program, to not beat themselves too much about this. I'm not turning cartwheels that I'm an alcoholic, but there could be lots of worse things wrong with me. I'm an alcoholic person. The only argument I have about this whole field of alcoholism is that I feel it should be called alcoholisms, because if there was ever a personal disease, alcoholism is it.
Kenneth Ramsey, St. Joseph's Hospital, Pittsburgh.
Unfortunately, today most people see alcoholism or the alcoholic as a person with a double overcoat and the bottle sticking out of his pocket who we're likely to run into in a Skid Row section of a city or sleeping on the park bench. Actually, this group of alcoholics consists of only 3 to 5% of the total alcoholic population. The majority of alcoholics are employed, living with their families, and a great many of them, perhaps a majority, are in management-type blue-collar, white-collar positions. In addition, there has been a myth that alcoholism affects primarily men. However, some research and from our own experience, we can see that perhaps the ratio is more like 50 to 50. There may be an equal number of female alcoholics as there are male alcoholics. The only thing is that we don't see the female alcoholic as often. She stays hidden more in the house. She drinks at home rather than out. And then when she does seek treatment, it's generally to her family physician. What happens too often here is that the physician will prescribe a tranquilizer for treatment because the woman generally complains of anxiety or depression. And when she gets the tranquilizer, invariably she'll combine that with the alcohol and become addicted to both the soft drug, the tranquilizer, and alcohol.